Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is financial advisor and money coach Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And it's not just my lips that are tired. My nose is tired. My throat is tired. But I am gaining ground in beating this cold that I picked up a couple days ago. I'm progressing through it. So I'm hoping we're near the end of it right now. But that's okay, because in the meantime, I've got my wonderful co-host Jody Lynn Craven joining me today. Jody, how you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
Oh dear, this is my new setup here is giving me problems. I may have to abort the StreamYard approach right now just because this is giving me so many problems. So I think I'm going to do that. So anyone listening to the live stream, I apologize. The audio version, of course, of the podcast will be posted within the hour after we're done here. But just to get my computer to work properly, I'm going to have to turn the live stream off. So we'll see you guys later. So there goes that. And that should help my computer to settle down quite a bit. Yeah, there we go. Now we're getting the kind of readings I'm looking for. So, okay. We're back. Okay, now I can actually understand you guys. This is a good thing. And we have another special guest joining us today. His name is Ashlee Cave. And this guy has had, well, as with all of the guests who are here on the show, we have people who have amazing backgrounds, amazing things that have happened. But he has had so much going on in his life. And probably the most interesting and amazing part is how he evolved from a biology teacher to a man pursuing inner growth and helping other people to pursue inner growth. Well, biology, I guess, is about growth. So there's the parallel there. But Ashlee, first of all, welcome to the program. And second of all, how did you end up on that path?
Thank you very much for having me on the program. It's really great for the be here. Now, how did I get on that path? To begin with, I'd say I really, really enjoy sort of helping people. And originally, I thought to myself, to basically bring a lot of value to the people I come into contact with, would originally become like a teacher. And when I started pursuing that, firstly, I was actually at university studying sports and exercise performance at Real University. And I had an opportunity to sort of found the Centre of Exercise and Health, which is basically a sports testing facility for sports science and things for athletes. So while I was there, we sort of started that and got it running. And that was kind of a little bit of the tester for me kind of becoming a little bit of an entrepreneur and sort of disrupting things. But after I finished university, it was 2011, and there was a bit of a crisis where a lot of graduates weren't able to find employment. So I was sort of bouncing about, and actually got to a point where there's still no jobs. Perhaps I wasn't sort of approaching things in the right sort of mindset, but in the end I had to sort of sign on, which is basically like job seekers allowance. So I was getting money for the government so I can kind of look for some employment. And then from that standpoint, I ended up doing a job placement in a recruitment company. And that was actually something I wasn't too sure about doing, but I thought, you know what, Ash, the best thing to do is give it a good go. And if anything, I'll learn something from it. You never know, I might even get a job from that particular avenue. So I was there for a little while, started doing the work in the phones. So basically the resourcing part of recruitment, and it sort of got me over the whole, fright and being scared of actually being on the phone and speaking to people. And I used to literally be absolutely terrified to answer the phone, or basically I just wouldn't be able to speak on the phones. I just try and get over it as soon as possible. I'd be like, you know what, perhaps I should have said that a bit better than that. But after a while, sort of, thinking, working my way up, getting ready for it, getting a little bit sweaty sometimes before actually picking up that phone and making those phone calls as cold calls. I got into it a bit more, and eventually I got over that fear. And I thought to myself, now I can, now it'd be good to go and look into some of the avenues of employment. I then started working in the fitness industry, which is quite an easy transition from studying sports and exercise performance. So I was working in a well-known fitness company for about 3 years. And while I was there, I ended up teaching or running the classes, which are for the young individuals. So anyone who's from a secondary school or high school sort of age. And I was basically running their fitness sessions, and I started really enjoying it. And I thought to myself, perhaps Ashley, you might need to sort of pursue this. Maybe you need to actually go into teaching, because before I had no thought that I was going to be a teacher at all. If someone spoke to me when I was 11 years old, or even when I was 16 years old, even when I was like 21 years old in uni, and said, "Oh, you're going to become a teacher in secondary school," I said, "Yes," I said, "You're a liar." And I literally would have said, "No, mate, no, not me, definitely not me." But yeah, it just seemed that I thought I was able to sort of bring things in a perspective that made the mundane a bit more enjoyable, made things not so tedious. So I decided to go back to university, and originally I was thinking I might be a PE teacher, but I was looking at the career paths, and there was a lot of PE teachers and not many posts. I knew there was a point where there was a situation where there's not many science teachers, so I decided to retrain as a biology teacher. So I went into a school-centred initial teaching training program in Southend, and I was placed in the all-girls school teaching biology, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then eventually I ended up getting a teaching post in a school which I was actually a student at after, and I was teaching science at Highland School for a number of years. And then when I was actually working there, I thought, where do I want to be in the next 10 years? I said, you know what, I'd love to be a head of department, head of biology. I think I can definitely bring a lot of value if I can do something like that. So I sort of set myself a challenge that I will be a head of biology within 10 years time, and having a certain amount of a certain salary as well, which at that time was over 40k a year. So I'm going to achieve that at some point. I just don't know when, but I'm going to start acting as I am that now, and just take opportunities and carry on learning. So as I was there at Highland School, I was just trying different ways of sort of approaching teaching and approaching behaviour management, and it started to work. And eventually I got a teaching post in a school near Grays. And eventually I got headhunted from LinkedIn. Someone said there was a biology position, the head of biology position, which you can interview for. And at the time I was thinking, I'm not ready to be head of biology. But you know what? Like, the worst thing can happen. I'll go for the interview and they say I'm absolutely crap. But doesn't matter, because I'll be able to learn something from it. And the next time I go for an interview, I'll have that particular those things I can use to then bring into that avenue. So I went for the interview with no sort of expectations, and just was true to myself. And it seemed like the head teacher at the time, really took a liking to me and thought that I could bring something to the department. So then I started up as head of biology at Greenswood Academy.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
She does it. Yeah. So I was head of biology, and that's how I sort of got to that standpoint. And then that's it in a nutshell. From that point, to answer your first question there.
Yeah, that'll do it. That's pretty good. Actually, when you were talking about what it was like when you came out of school and that there was no jobs, there was a job crisis going on, it actually made me think back to when I came out of school. Now, granted, when I came out of school, it was at the dawn of time, so it's a few years ago. But when I actually came out of school at the time of the great hyperinflation of the early 1980s, late 1970s, and there was nothing. I mean, you couldn't even get anything at the equivalent of McDonald's. McDonald's hadn't really become a big thing yet. But that you couldn't even get that. There was nothing at all. It was terrifying. And I think there's something about an experience like that. Yeah, it's not happy going through something like that. But I mean, Jody and I were talking about this over the last couple of weeks. But you go through an experience like that, it grows you. It makes you stronger. It makes you better.
Yeah. I actually have the same experience going to school. I took environmental technology. And when I got out of, college, there was no jobs. And I was like, what? Yeah. I just spent 2 years in school, so I can completely relate to what you're saying. And I love actually that you said that you felt unprepared to be the head of biology, but you said yes anyway.
Yeah, I love that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I did, when I said yes, I was coming to the first day. I was like, oh, well, if I've bitten off you, mate, like I'm going to have to sort of switch it up or get going quickly. So, I had quite a lot of support. So luckily I had a good team around me at the time. And they supported me in my growth and development. And then from then they offered me the head of Key Stage 3 science. And then I went over to that sort of standpoint and sort of built things from scratch from there and carried on sort of developing. And that's sort of how that sort of transpired. And while I was doing all those sort of things, I was still looking at developing myself. I was doing trading at the time as well. I was looking at other avenues so I can build my own wealth and just see how I can sort of change things up and just be a bit more different. I didn't want to kind of be, I'd say like a slave to one income stream. So I really wanted to make sure I had many different strings to my bow so I can do anything and be able to pivot from different standpoints. So that's what I was doing at the time.
How did it work out?
Well, yeah, it's worked out pretty well so far. Yeah, definitely. Like, I didn't think when I was doing maybe like 4 years ago that I would have multiple businesses in the property sector and be using other people's money to invest in property. I did not envision that 4 years ago. However, as things sort of developed and as my skills developed and more opportunities came to me, I was like, well, why not me? You know, my mentors are able to do it and they are mentoring me. So therefore, as long as I'm doing exactly what they say and I carry on growing and learning from each experience, then I should be able to do exactly what they're doing and not exactly, but maybe make it my own as well. So that's where I'm sort of transpiring now. I'm moving on to, you know, being able to mentor people as well and help other people. So earn and learn as they come on board as an investor within the company. So, I'm always willing to look at building partnerships and to see who I can sort of meet and grow the network, within from my standpoint, really.
And Jody, I was just realizing, I hadn't dawned on me before this, but you and Ashlee are in very similar fields.
Yeah.
I mean,
closely
like a lot of overlap.
Yeah. But also very different. I have a financial brokerage, Ashlee. So I understand some of the things you're saying. And one of my best friends actually has a company where she gets people to invest and then she buys commercial real estate. And I think it's fascinating, the process. And I mean, I'm in Canada, so things would be a little bit different, but, I think that it takes guts hearing her story and hearing your story. It's a walk that I have never, been able to take yet, in terms of that, but I think it's so cool.
Yeah. It's definitely cool. Like every day when I sort of maybe even reading my emails from the business email standpoint, I'm so excited and elated the fact that I'm on this sort of path. And, just having the courage and go through that sort of that terror barrier, once you go past it and you say, right, I've done it, you get that sense of, well, massive dopamine hit is one of the standpoints which happen. But the thing is, once you do that, you realize what you're able to do. And then you can, then it's all history basically. You just got to make sure you remember where you came from so you don't start getting complacent if certain things start not going your way, because inevitably there's going to be some challenges along the way. And you've got to be able to say, right, this challenge is going to develop me, as a person in some way, shape or form for the next challenge later on in life. So if I didn't have the challenges, so if I walked out of university and got like a job as a sports scientist right off the bat, I wouldn't have the resilience or determination now. And it's important that I had to go through that. And even some of the other hurdles which I went through when I was in university, which I was able to use my skill set to help my mum as well, because she was quite ill at the time. So I used my knowledge of exercise prescription to help her sort of recover from an illness. So it's definitely all things happen for a reason. And if you don't sit back and actually say, right, how can I solve something? Then you're just going to be someone running away from every opportunity which has come your way. And I think that's, when it's all said and done, and if you have a chance to sort of think about things before you go for that long sleep, I'd rather say I've done everything and I'm absolutely happy, and I've been able to leave something here, a legacy, and had lots of value, rather than saying, I never sung my song, I never done what I could do. So yeah, that's what sort of spurs me on when things get really, really difficult.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Mhm.
Now, as you're going down this path of basically self-development, because that's really what you're alluding to here.
Yeah.
What are some of the lessons you learned earliest? Like if you think back to the stuff that you were learning along the way, because that's really what we're doing. We're learning as we're doing this.
Yeah.
What was the best stuff that you learned?
Best things I learned. One of the best things I learned would be how to manage myself. Some people might say manage time, but manage yourself I think is a better way of explaining it, because we cannot control time, but we can control what we do in the time that we're given. So just being able to use some of the things from when I've looked at some things from Bob Proctor, and also developing some of the skills from when I was teaching, is just being able to set a list of what I'm going to do the night before. So there might be 6 things I'm going to do while I'm sort of journaling. And I will then have those 6 things and prioritize them, which is the income generating task, if that's going to be the first point, or what's the creative task of the day. So I'll make sure I have creative tasks in the morning when I'm most focused, and I actually have time to say, if I think it's going to take an hour, let's make it take 3 hours. Let's assume it's going to take me 3 hours. So I'm happy to sit for 3 hours and go through a really complex task and focus on that. So that's how I sort of plan my time. So yeah, that's one of the greatest things which I've been able to learn, because I've been able to focus on some seriously challenging aspects of getting the business started, of actually getting deals off the bat, because there was points where I literally was phoning everyone, asking every neighbor, their dog, have you got a property? What's going on? I couldn't get a property for love nor money. I was looking under rocks, everything, nothing. So so I was like being able to say, get up every morning and have a list of calls of what I'm going to do. And I remember there was about over, let's say, 500 calls I made, for property calls, which were no's. And let's say for every property call that I made, before I hung up nicely and left it on a nice clean bat, there was at least 3 no's before I hung up. So that gives you a sort of a number of no's I faced before getting the first property over a line. You got, when you're coming as a new investor, you got to pay your dues. So you got to do what you got to do to make sure that people know who you are and what you stand for, so you can be trusted and therefore be able to do so. So yeah, lots of no's. For every no, it meant that I was able to say, right, maybe it wasn't particularly what I was selling. Maybe it's not me as an individual. Perhaps my actual pitch is wrong. Perhaps I've not been able to listen to the individual and actually solve their problem. So therefore went back and thought about and say, okay, Ash, you need to make sure you solve these problems and listening, and make sure you come with an actual solution before you sort of try and give them the offer, really. And then things are starting to work a bit better. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but you've got to be able to go there. It's going to be no's, it's going to be yeses. Just got to find the right one.
Absolutely true. That's very true. I'm also intrigued by the fact that you start off with, I can't remember exactly how you described it, but fear of talking on the phone, which is something I can totally identify with. I have been through the exact same thing. About the only difference is you broke through in a way I didn't break through. And I congratulate you for that. That is a major achievement, especially when you come from that place of being terrified of making phone calls, especially something with the word sale attached to it.
Yeah.
You broke through it anyway. How do you think you broke through? What do you think made the difference for you?
Right. So some people say I've got a bit of a dry sense of humor. So I'm going to say this how I normally say it to myself in my head. It might come off right. It may not. So I remember when I was sitting literally in front on the desk, and before I was about to make the call, I probably wrote down my script 5 or 6 times on a little notepad. I was then thinking my hands are getting clammy. I can literally feel the sweat dripping down me now before I pick up that phone. And I say, right, Ash, what's the worst thing that can happen? Is the world going to stop spinning if you pick up this phone and the person puts it down to you? Did I know?
Yes, of course the world's going to stop spinning. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so I was thinking that. So I thought, nothing's going to happen. I'm going to learn something at the end of the day. Let's give it a go. And, just just keep going. Like because I'm quite into fitness. I thought the first time I picked up a weight, I thought, I just went for it. And, as you stay dedicated to a process, then you're going to get better at it. So that's why I was thinking, just stay dedicated. Actually, if you carry on making phone calls, I'm either going to get better or they're going to tell me they're going to walk out the door. Either way, I'll either know that I can't make phone calls or I'll be getting better at it. So, I went through it and it was the best thing.
I love how you framed that in your mind, because that's what a lot of people struggle with in terms of sales, is that no process, getting the no, and that fear of actually picking up the phone. But throughout your entire journey, as you were explaining it, that's something that I noticed about you, is that you're always looking for what you can learn. And instead of, submitting to defeat, it didn't go well after 500 times. You keep looking for the lesson and you keep moving forward. And that's incredibly courageous, Ashlee.
Oh, cheers. Much appreciated. Yeah. Like, I just hate to just not achieve something. Like I never really was a person of fear of avoid failure. It's a fear of avoid failure. I think that's the term I probably use. I was maybe saying it wrong, but I never would try and avoid failure. I'd rather achieve than avoid failure. And I think some people like to avoid failure because of what might be the social adage. So they think that if someone finds that they failed, everyone's going to be ridiculing me. Oh my God, people are going to see, and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, most time people are more focused on their own thing rather than what you're doing. And if they are focused on you and trying to go and point things at you and say, ha, whatever, then they're not your person. So therefore, you shouldn't be really worried about what they think. So that's sort of my things. I remember when I first started the business, I was putting out some posts and I had my first sort of negative comment, and someone put a load of fart noises on it. I was like, well, yes, fantastic. I've annoyed someone. So that's one person annoyed. And that out of 10 people, that's one person annoyed. So if I have 100 people, that's just the percentage wise. So there's not going to be too bad. I'm not going to always please everyone, but I'd rather be doing this, and then hopefully I can help someone on my journey while I sort of progress as well. So that's the most thing, be able to provide a service for people, and then the value as well. So then everyone's happy, because I think there's a lot of people a bit scared to maybe try something new. And I think if I can sort of give them a little bit of a helping hand, hold their hand as they go through it, in terms of maybe investing for the first time, or maybe just learning about how to invest. You don't have to actually, go straight into it, because I think some people might need to break down a few barriers before they do so. And then I can sort of help them on that sort of journey, really.
Oh, that's really great. I love that. In fact, when you were talking about this, from the moment that you started telling the story, actually, you reminded me of a very old story about a kid who takes it upon himself to go muck out the barn. He's living on a farm. He goes to muck out the barn, and it is like a mess. It's like a total mess. And he's going at it for hours. He's just, working and working, trying to clear this barn out, trying to clean it up and so forth. And the farmer comes along at one point and says, "Boy, what are you doing?" And the boy says, "Well, with all this horse crap in here, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere."
I like that one.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. But that's the hyper focus that I was talking about, that you were talking about, really. You were so happy. You didn't care that you had you did care, but you weren't stopped by the fact that you weren't getting the result. All those calls, you still hadn't found your first property. You weren't stopped by that. That's huge. That's focus.
Yeah. And I even thought I had properties and lost them as well. So that was interesting. I said to myself, well, okay, well, if not this one, then something better or as good is going to come around. So, just keep going and make sure that anytime something didn't go quite my way, that I just left it on a good note. And I think that's important, because some people can get quite bitter at times, and then they kind of, they try and be a bit nasty to try and make themselves feel better in the short term, but in the long term, they don't know what they may actually be, worsening for themselves later on in life. So I always kind of think of it's not leaving any crumbs behind you when you're having any interactions with people. You never know what's going to happen. You never know, you might say something in an elevator and then turn up and then that's safe as an interview and find out that person is actually the person interviewing you, so you don't know. So that's what I find it.
It's true. It's very true. So, okay. So we've got some pretty good lessons that you picked up there, but over time, of course, we all just continue to learn. We continue to pick up new things. I mean, that's been my story just by doing this podcast. I mean, so many wonderful people on the show. I learned from all of them and I love their perspectives and so forth. And the learning is an ongoing process, but at some point you made the decision to not just keep learning for yourself, but to help others in the same way. How did that come about?
Right. So I think the best way to sort of learn things for yourself at times is to actually teach other people it. So gain understanding, a good understanding where you can apply something. And then as you're applying it, you can help people up along the way, because therefore you gain a better understanding. So I know for my instance, when I was teaching, I think I was 2 years into teaching, and then they had, a trainee teacher then to come and shadow some of my lessons to learn some of the things from myself. And then they would take over lessons and then I would mentor them. And as I was helping them to build their skills as a teacher, I was realizing that, some of the things which I'm complacent about, I can kind of basically not be complacent and teach them a way to develop a way of dealing with those certain situations. So, for example, it could be behavior management, it could be how you're planning your day, your lesson planning. So that can be quite a tedious task. But if you sort of come at it in a systematic way, you can make it not tedious and very, very enjoyable. So I just find that if I am helping other people as I'm going myself, sometimes, more often than not, you get there quicker, because you never know what type of skill they may have. You don't know what sort of network they may have. And, then as I say, that your network is your net worth. So the more people I help, I don't know what's going to happen in the way. Like, I'm not expecting to have something straight away, but, maybe 5 years down the line, they might be doing well and then come and do a partnership with me. Perhaps they may know another high net worth individual or something which wants to do maybe essays, for example, as a service accommodations, and they may want to start with me because they've heard about me as a person, therefore trust me and would like to sort of dip their toe in and see what happens. So that's I think I've got to digress a little bit, but I believe that's far as that. Well, I think I've answered it.
It's okay. We digress all the time. This is normal for the show. You're in good space.
Actually, it's so notable. Your unshakable or unwavering belief that everything will always work out, and the way that you treat people because of that. Was that just something that was instilled in you, from childhood, or did you pick that up, or do you even know when you started to really believe that in your life, or it's just always been that way?
That's a very good question. I think it was something that was in me before in childhood, but I think as you get certain things socially facilitated, or you learn from things in order to protect yourselves. At some points, probably around about 5 years ago, I was a bit disillusioned. So therefore, I was kind of think that perhaps every cloud didn't have a silver lining. Perhaps everyone is out there to get you, and you can't trust anyone, only yourself. So at some points, I was actually just doing everything myself in teaching, and that led to me working far too hard, not smart. So I always say work smarter, not harder. But then as something notably that happened to me, I actually had like a relatively serious knee injury from playing hockey, and I wasn't able to play hockey or exercise for a while. So having that outlook meant that I was just building up with stress and things. I had no outlet, so I had to have a change. And I just sort of remember sitting down one day and sort of thinking, right, I need to change my tactics here. What am I doing which is wrong here? And I just sort of thought there's some things going on. So I sort of gradually got back to my standpoint. And then I started reading again for actual pleasure. So before I was only things I read was the stuff we do with academia education, and anything I was going to be teaching maybe the next week I'll be just reading that. And that was tedious to me. I started not enjoying the reading. So when I started reading more about self-development again, I was like, right, here we go. I'm back to myself now. Stop listening to the news. That's one thing. So, and then quite a few things, more and more and more, reframe things which may have happened. So say something that could be possibly bad is equally as good as it is bad. So you just got to be able to see that and take a step back. You may not see it to begin with, but sit back, wait, and then you can see the silver lining once it does appear. Because, that's what got me back to thinking as myself and being able to deal with things, because I believe that if you have your vision and you continuously do something towards it, no matter how small, eventually you'll realize your vision. And it's been true so far. I've had my vision board up there for a while now, and everything has transpired. Mostly, there's a couple more things need to transpire, but there's no gestation period on your vision, so it just takes time sometimes. But I'm not worried about that.
Well, good for you. Yeah, you don't want to be worried about that. Worry is the opposite direction.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to go that way. I love I keep coming back to the same phrase. You have a hyper focus. And that's something that you develop. That doesn't just, maybe there are some people, Jody Lynn's extraordinary, so maybe she just kind of developed it easily. But the rest of us actually have to go at it. And you really went at it. Yeah, you really went at it. And you continue to go at it. You just are getting more and more and more focused every single day. It's obvious from your story.
Yeah, I definitely, that's something I do work at, has become hyper focused. I actually, like saying things, I don't listen to the news anymore. That was part of the reason. So I looked at what I was doing, like the habits I had developed over time. I said, well, what habits were progressing me, and which ones were not progressing, or not adding to my progress, per se. So I just sort of took on the news. I said I wanted to make sure I was exercising every morning. So I said to myself, well, how can I make sure that it's easy for me to exercise every morning? Because sometimes you don't want to, when that bed is feeling nice, the fact of getting out, rolling out of bed and putting exercise kit on, or putting your trainers on, walking outside when it's cold. No one wants to do that. So I said, what I will do, I'll buy a bike. Buy a spin bike. It's right at the end of my bed. All I got to do is jump out of bed, jump on the bike. On there, I'm doing my exercise, literally 2 minutes. My books are next to it, so if I'm reading one of my books as I'm cycling, therefore I'm learning something and I'm getting the exercise straight in the morning, and I do that every morning. So that's the sort of thing to get sort of laser focused. One of the things I do, and I just make sure I meditate as well in the mornings and evenings, and just make sure I sort of stick to my plan. I also just don't. Sometimes it's not. I try to do this most of the time. I try not to look at my phone at certain times of day. So I just won't look at it. I say it's only important if someone's ringing me. If someone's ringing me, it better be important. So that's sort of how I sort of see it. So I'll stop what I'm doing to answer a phone call. But in terms of texts and things, that can wait until later on. So past 2 p.m., 3 p.m., whatever, depending on the day. And then that's when my most creative time or most focused time has gone for the day. So then I'll start looking at things like that.
I love where you put the bike, by the way. It's right at the foot of the bed. You can't miss it when you wake up. It's right in front of you. Positive psychologists talk about it. If you can make it really in close proximity, you're going to do it. And you do.
Yeah, exactly.
I also like that you were working with the way that you are, it's cold. I'm not going to want to go outside, instead of beating yourself up and trying to force yourself to do something that it's going to make it harder to do. You made it easy for yourself to do it. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And I think that's something that some people don't do, is that they're happy to say that something's too hard and don't bother, or they're happy to say they'll join a gym and then not actually go to the gym. So I say, why not bring the gym to my doorstep? So it's there. I haven't got to sign up for anything. It's right there. If you can learn a few things resistance bands. Like I was touting that during the lockdown. So if you've got resistance bands or a towel or something you can use, you can get yourself a really good workout. And it doesn't have to take like hours. It's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is. Make it a little habit eventually. May take a while to become a habit, but it could be as little as 5 minutes to start with. And then, you can increase that as you become a bit more fitter, got a little habit then.
Which is how to start a habit. You start it one little bit at a time and just take a little larger step and a little larger step and a little larger step, and then it becomes a habit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's big. I love that. So give us an idea of, we've got the story now. We got an idea of the life story to date. Where are you headed? Where do you see yourself going next?
Right. So next, I was thinking about it a little while ago. If everything goes to plan, I believe we should be hitting 6 figures in SAs, so service accommodation, by the end of this year. That's if everything goes to plan. That's the immediate step. After that, I believe I may be doing some courses. I may start my own course. And I do have some other things, but I don't want to give too much away too soon.
We're not asking for company secrets. It's okay.
Yeah. I think that's the immediate, and just carry on growing the business. And I'd love to do some partnership with some other training companies and things, which I think I'll be able to provide some value to them. From being a teacher and being a person who's sort of started things from scratch. So I'd really enjoy to get on that sort of bandwagon, really.
And I'm just realizing, Jody, there's another parallel between the two of you, because Jody, you had that big bump that you ran into early on in your life. You lost the house, you lost all that kind of stuff. And then you just ran from there. Like everything just took off once you got past that bump. Ashlee had his bump coming right out of school, couldn't get work. There was nothing available. Got past the bump and flew. You guys both basically have followed the same kind of trajectory. You hit a bump and then you flew.
Yeah.
There's so many things, Ashlee, within your story of like the sitting there and making calls. Like we used to play games, like practicing the script and like common objections, and we'd throw balls at each other. Cause if you could catch a ball and say, whatever you're supposed to say, you knew your stuff really well. So I love that. And something that I worked on with, doing things and like having that hyper focus. I wanted to read my goals every day. So like you put the bike at the end of your bed. I put my goals underneath my keys so that to grab my keys for my vehicle, I had to look at them, which meant that I was going to read them. So just setting myself up for success and the way that I operate instead of, trying to force myself into somebody else's mold. So there's a lot of similarities I see. I love it.
Yeah. I like the fact that the point you mentioned about putting your goals by your keys. I do something similar to that. Goals on the wall. So I see it every time I walk in and walk out, and I've had goals and different bits of paper lost different places. And sometimes in my actual journal, I'd write down, if I know I've got something big happening towards the end of the week, I might write down a little goal and now time to celebrate or something like that. So when I get to that point, I'm like, right, good. Now get that dopamine hit. Actually, you worked hard for it. Go on. And then I'll go and celebrate or do whatever you got to do to just reinforce the fact you've put the effort in. So I think sometimes people don't actually like celebrate their own success. They just move on to the next thing or look for the next, if the grass was greener, rather than thinking, right, hang on, right here is where the gold is. And you need to make sure you make this part good. And then the rest will actually be drawn to you, which people sometimes don't really understand.
Mm-hmm. They're so focused on that do aspect that they forget to celebrate and be in the moment. I was just looking at all my Facebook pictures, scrolling through all of them to find a photo, and just looking over my life and all of the things that I've been through and all of the moments that I just like zipped past without celebrating. That's a great point. You got to celebrate it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause if you're not celebrating, are you really appreciating?
Great point.
And it also occurs to me too, I'm going to go back to the hyper-focus thing, because I think this is really, really big. And the way I'm going to hone in on it this time is I'm going to talk about how you set up a note on the wall for yourself. Jody does it with her keys. You do it with her on the wall. and you do something that other people won't necessarily do with that. You see it every day. You said that. You see it every day. I have a note on my wall. I've had it here for like 6 years. I don't see it every day. I haven't trained myself to see it every day. You've trained yourself. You've trained that reticular activating system to always filter it in, to always notice it every single day.
Yeah. It was another habit I built. I said, right, if I literally spend, let's say 2 minutes every night or 2 minutes every morning looking at it for at least a week to begin with, and then try and maybe make that 10 minutes where I might actually read through them. And sometimes maybe look at the pictures, visualize what it actually feels like when I do achieve that particular thing. And I did that every night, every morning, and then eventually became a habit. And sometimes, I might not look at it, I might just walk past it, but sometimes I might just glimpse it. And because I've already created that particular image, and then once I glimpse it, then I start thinking about, the feelings of achieving what I've achieved, or what's the next part of the vision. And that's how it's worked for me.
I love that. And you're reminding me of a speech that I heard. I heard W. Clement Stone give a talk one time. He was in his 99th year. He was doing very well at that point. He lasted a few years beyond that. Yeah. And he gave a talk on repetition. And being, the old school guy he was, his speech was repetition. I mean, it was like over and over and over again, drilling it into your head. Yeah. But what he was trying to say is, if you want to learn something and not just learn it, but make it part of your life, you have to repeat it over and over and over again. That's how you build the habit. And that's what you're doing. That's what you described just now. You built the habit one day at a time.
Yeah. Always, it's never, it can be something so small and just start it. As I say, some people, some may not. They just look at the big picture, think, I can never make it that way, make it there. And so they scare themselves away from it. But, as you reverse engineer something, what are the little steps that you can take now? And then start taking those little steps now. It could be as little as research something up on Google. Who are the top 5 mentors in your particular area? And then maybe from those top 5 mentors, who is in your area, and actually looking for mentees, perhaps just find that out. That's one step. It could be, is there any free courses about, or is it anything, whatever you want to do, just look for something and just take that little step in a direction. If it's a little bit scary, it's probably the right thing to do. So actually take that step around that point and just get there. Because I remember when I first went to the first, what do I go to? When I went to the first viewing and things, like as a professional property investor, I was thinking, what are they going to ask me? I'm feeling a bit iffy on this point. But I said, no, just get out there, put some nice clothes on, feel the part, get out there and just see how it goes. And ask the questions you're going to ask. And if you put the offer in, you put the offer in. If you don't, you don't. But, if you don't get out there, no one's going to know what you're doing. And you're never going to get anywhere. So you've got to take the steps.
So true. And you're not going to die. Right?
No, exactly. Yeah.
I love that. I say that all the time, but you didn't die. You're going to be fine.
Yeah, I always use this one adage when I was teaching. I use it now. So, has everyone got their fingers and toes? No one died yet? Fantastic. Let's move on. So that's how I sort of see things, sometimes I have a little bit of bruised ego if I had a little bashing by someone, but, doesn't matter. I remember I was literally, what happened? I was, basically selling a bed on Facebook market sales, and it's just nothing to do with property investor or anything like that, but just had a bed. I thought, this could be of value to someone. I'll sell the bed frame, not really caring how much it would cost. And someone was interested in it. I said, okay, I can arrange someone to deliver it for you at a cost. And I thought it was all sorted. And then she said basically, words to the effect, you can deliver it anytime Wednesday. I said, brilliant. Anytime Wednesday. I'll just make sure my friend with the van can deliver that anytime Wednesday. She's then ringing me Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, multiple phone calls. And what's going on here? What's happened? Oh, yeah, I need to know when the bed's coming. At the end of the day, to cut a long story short, I told her that the bed's going to come not today, tomorrow. And she had a massive go at me and said how I've wasted her time and stuff. I said, hang on. I'm not asking you. You don't have to buy the bed. Like, you asked to buy the bed. I didn't actually say it to her. I just took the ear banging or whatever it is, and just sort of moved her on, because at the end of the day, it's nothing to do with me. That was either do with whatever situation she was in, and I was the scapegoat in that sort of time. And then literally the next day, she rang me up and said she wanted to buy the bed again. So I was like, okay, no problem then. Here's the bed. Here you go. So, yeah, I always digress. If you get me talking sometimes, go off on different tangents. I'm so always sometimes.
Well, that means you fit right in, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
We like that. Yeah. This is really good. I'm enjoying this a lot. I want to explore one other direction here, and that direction is the direction of how you help others. Because you indicated that was a direction you were heading into. We haven't yet explored that. What have you found as you've explored that arena of helping others?
Right. So that's a good question. I love seeing a light bulb moment in people. So when they go over, when they hit maybe a barrier and they can't understand something, or they're scared of something, and then they go, after a bit of trial and error, they get that light bulb moment, or they get that increased self-esteem, self-worth, that really resonates with me. And I know, for example, from my experiences, because I've done this with students in the secondary school sector, I believe I can do a better job if I was mentoring adults or just older people, basically, who actually chose in this particular avenue. So rather than actually dragging people through science, someone who's actually decided to invest in property, or is interested in that, or interested in developing themselves in some way, shape or form, I'd love to just help them either get out their comfort zone a little bit, try something new, maybe look at different points of views and things. I think, we all have our own beliefs or paradigms, which therefore make us take certain decisions most of the time. And sometimes it's important to be able to take a step back and look at things at different perspectives, and being able to act accordingly or respond rather than react, which some people may react. So I think I'm a good person to be able to help people to do so in certain circumstances. So I'd love to sort of to help develop people in that sort of avenue as I sort of develop and increase my own knowledge of myself, because I believe as I learn more about myself, I'm learning more about other people, because I look back at some experiences which I've had with people. I think, they responded that way because they were trying to avoid failure, or they had a deep-seated belief that if X, Y, Z was to happen, people are going to think this of them. So they've decided to do this, certain things. So that really resonates with me. So I'd love to be able to do that.
Oh, I love that.
Mm.
Well, it sounds like you're already doing it, really.
Yeah, I reckon so. So that's why I thought, I need to make it
right?
a bit more obvious that I'm doing it. So yeah, that's I got a few things in the works to make that more apparent. So with every investor we've taken on, we've given them the opportunity to learn and earn. So they can speak to me, they can speak to some members of the team, come with us when we're actually going to view the properties and as we're going to set them up and things. So they can learn a lot of how it all works, and therefore I love doing that. Really, that really interests me.
Let's talk about the mentoring side too, because you've mentioned that a few times now, and you're clearly in the process of doing that with your crew. Yeah. But why is a mentor so important? Why do you think that is it, first of all, do you agree that a mentor is vitally important for success? And second of all, why? Why is it so important?
Yeah, I think a mentor is extremely important to success, because in a day, a mentor is someone who's basically done or is doing exactly what you're going to be aiming to do, aiming to be successful in. Now, they have already done what you're trying to do, therefore made the mistakes that you are possibly going to make. So I really, really think it's important to work smarter rather than harder. So why not leverage someone else's mistakes and knowledge and get a mentor? So therefore, instead of like, for example, if I make it quite simple, if I was trying to change the tire on a bike, so the inner tube on a bike. Now, someone who's a bicycle mechanic will know the easiest way to get that wheel off, get the tire off, and check the inner tube for punctures and get that on probably within about 10 minutes. Now, for me, I haven't got a clue. So I might first off think, have I got the right spanner first? Do I need a spanner and whatever? Do I need to heat it up first? Do I need more leverage? I have to go through the process, trial and error before I get the wheel off, before I then get the tire off to get the inner tube off, because I might not have the actual tools. And if I finally get it off, I'll be like, oh, hang on, now I've got to find out where the hole is. How can I get the final hole? Do I just pump it up and just try and hear it? Just listen for the air coming out? Or do I stick it in the water first? Now, the mentor will be able to tell me exactly what to do step by step, save me the time, and get it done with minimal effort in regards to going through that time and effort. And I wouldn't want to wish that upon anyone. So I remember actually trying to do that as a youngster and didn't know how to change the tire on my bike. So yeah, that's from my actual experience, that one.
That's a cool one too. Yeah, because that's where we learn the best from our own live actual experience. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Something
and
else.
We use YouTube as a mentor a lot of times now.
Yeah. I do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's big. I'm also reminded too of a comment that my Thursday co-host Dan Mendana, who's also from the UK, by the way, but he lives in Mexico now. A statement that he made recently in a special event I had. He said, yes, mentoring is very important, but make sure you're careful about who you pick as your mentor.
Yeah.
Don't pick your best friend. Don't pick people that you know and trust because you know and trust them. Pick somebody who's been there, who's done it, who actually has walked the walk, talked the talk.
Yes, exactly. That's so important. So I think not a lot of people, maybe some people may choose mentors or seek advice from people who haven't actually walked the walk and talked the talk. And they'll just give you their opinion, which I don't mean anything wrong about it, but then the opinion may not necessarily be the correct opinion, and it may send you up the wrong rabbit hole per se. So it's important. And also to add on that is that to make sure that particular mentor, you actually resonate with them. Like, do you get a good vibe off them? Because not everyone's vibes match. Like, I'm a straight talking person. I appreciate someone who's straight to the point and doesn't waste time, like pussyfooting the round sort of thing. So sometimes I'm happy to have a bit of a chat, but if it's something that, if I ask like a particular question or the opinion, I say, look, don't try and make it nice to me. I'm not a bit of like China. I'm not going to break. Just literally come at me and tell me exactly what's wrong with it and why and the solution. Or if you want me to work out my own solution, then tell me that. Let's get at it. And that's kind of how I sort of feel about it. I'd rather someone be straightforward. They could be rude if that's the way they are, as long as we get on and we vibe, because I don't mind. Like some people who may know me quite well, is I might be quite blunt about things, but I'm not saying it to be rude. It's just how it's how I say it, that's how it's come out in my mind. And in order to get the severity, not the severity, to get the feeling of how important something is, the stress of gravity of it, I have to say it in a certain way. So, I usually say, I'm only joking when I say it's nothing against you, but that's, you've got to be kinder on it. And a lot of the people who are in my team, they are straight talking and they have experience. My mentors are mostly straight talking. And we vibe quite well on that regard. So they just say how it is, and sometimes they might say, you don't mind if I be like, straight to the point. And I say, yeah, go for it. Don't worry about it. So, I think that's important.
Absolutely. And I think too, with having a mentor or seeking out a mentor, for me anyway, it's been an evolution. As I evolve, so do they. Would you say the same?
Yeah, definitely. As I've mentored people, I've definitely evolved, and I'd like to think that I've had a little bit of a positive impact on my mentors as well. Because I think I may have asked them some thought-provoking questions, or maybe I never thought of doing it that way, or why are you doing it that way? And they may not have agreed with what I'm doing before, and they were so like totally say no, I wouldn't do that, Ash, and I just did it anyway, and they're like, okay, that's worked out for you. But not most people that wouldn't work out for you. That's because you just literally just carried on going for it. I was like, yeah, okay. I had a feeling it's going to work out. So I just went for it. And I thought, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm going to have a lesson year. So, yeah, that's why I went for it.
That's an interesting point too, because, in that same conversation I had with Dan, where he told me about his view that you want to go with somebody who really has been there before. One of the things he also told me was a real story from his own experience.
Yeah.
Early on in his development of his career, he helped people with wealth management. And what he would do is he'd find people who had a nice bit of change, hook them up with professional wealth managers, and basically help them to set up a program so that they can keep building their wealth for the rest of their lives. Well, he did this with this one person who was a lottery winner.
Mm-hmm.
And the lottery winner was, we'll say it kindly. He thought he was listening to his inner voice, but he was actually listening to his best friend's voice.
Oh, yeah.
And what happened was Dan hooked him up with a wealth management team that was going to promise him like a 30% annual increase on the value of his portfolio.
Nice.
And his friend comes along and says, with all the money you've got, this guy won millions of dollars in laundering. With all the money you've got, you should be earning much better than that. And so he followed his friend's advice, and he lost almost all of it. The only part that he didn't lose was the small amount that he let the wealth management company run for him. So now he's living, he still lives comfortably, but he could have had so much more. He basically squandered 95% of what he won on the lottery, all because he listened to the wrong mentor.
That's so important. Yeah, that's definitely a good point to put across. Yeah.
It's expertise, it's trust, it's all of it in one great big package. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you honestly, for myself, finding mentors over the years was hard for me. Mm-hmm. I can't honestly say I had a lot of success until I started doing the podcast. Actually, I had no success. Mm-hmm. The podcast actually introduced me to some great mentors.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a challenge. You really have to, it's almost a skill you have to develop.
Yeah.
I think it helps knowing yourself, though. Would you say that too, Ashlee? Like, the more you know yourself, the more you could probably see your own blind spots and how you're going to struggle with certain mentors. Like, I know for me, some mentors just pushed me, wouldn't let me fly, wouldn't let me do what I wanted to do. So that didn't work out so well for them.
Yeah.
I know that about me.
Yeah, definitely. I know, when I was, in the early stage of teaching, and I had some mentors, and they were more sort of micromanaging and say, you have to deal with this particular situation like this. And, I said, okay. So I did. And I changed my lesson to their expectation, had someone then come and, observe a lesson. And I said, well, what have you done? You were this good before. Now you're like no good, mate. What's going on? Yeah. So, that was one of my experiences, not having a mentor, which is like good for myself as for my development. And maybe, like I said, for her particular way of teaching works pretty well, or quite well, because she's a very good teacher. But maybe for the school or for me to then come across as that way doesn't work, because I also got to think to myself, well, I'm about 6'1", 6'2", and I'm relatively well built. So if I'm shouting at someone, then that doesn't look good. Now, as maybe someone who's 5'1" and a female, them shouting might be more beneficial for that particular circumstance. But for me, I don't do that myself. I think it's better to discuss things. And, that's worked really good from my standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a big part. It's really selecting a mentor that fits you. And like you guys were saying, you have to know yourself to do that. But you also have to kind of, in a sense, you have to kind of try out the mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Do they measure up to what you need them to do?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And have the courage to let them go when they don't.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if you don't let it go, how are you going to move on?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of people use that as an excuse on, I've had a bad experience with a course or a mentor, you know, whatever, a coach or something like that. And it stops them from doing it again, finding a new one and committing and going all in. They sit on the fence. And I've been there before too, in that fear of, am I going to spend, you know, another $40,000 on a mentor that, you know, doesn't do anything? That's you know, that's a pretty penny to spend. But I think you got to get over that too, and leap and be willing to make those mistakes, because not only did the bad mentor teach me a lot, but it was all about this divine timing. You were kind of talking about it, Ashlee. Like, there is no gestation period for your dreams. Like, it's going to happen eventually if you just keep moving forward. And I love that you said that.
Oh yeah, definitely. If sometimes that actual that, as you mentioned before, is that the bad mentor is actually going to be setting you up for something else. Yeah. So it might be just to show you that, you know, perhaps you didn't need a mentor at this standpoint. Perhaps you need to go it alone for a little while. And then as you're on that path, you are going to meet someone through networking who's then going to want to partner with you. And maybe you don't have to spend the money on a mentor. Perhaps they'll decide to partner with you and become, you know, basically become part of your business or something. You don't know what's going to happen. So I'm always open to new opportunities. And that's why I always sort of just open the chat to people and see what happens. And, yeah, that's on that standpoint, I think. Yeah.
Sounds great. Hey, before we part company for today too, I want to give people the opportunity to find you. I mean, there may be somebody listening today right now who has always thought about getting into property investing and didn't really know who to talk to. And they're thinking, I should reach out to this guy. So how do they find you?
Right. Best way to find me would be on Instagram or Facebook. Instagram would be Ashlee, spelled ASHLEE _ and then Cave, CAVE. And just Ashlee Cave on actual Facebook. Once you're on one of those, you'll be able to find ways to reach out to me, and we can hopefully meet up and see what we can do, really.
Sounds good to me. I love it. Well, thank you for taking the time to join us today, talk about your background and your story and so forth. And I think probably also share some inspiration for people who are looking for some inspiration. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Been really enjoying it. Normally I'll be chilling out, maybe having a little nap now, but it's been good to be on here chatting to you lot, to be fair, to have to be honest.
Well, considering that it's nearly 10 p.m. there, I think you deserve more than a nap. You deserve like a night's sleep, you know? So.
Yeah, probably.
So, excuse me. I made it through the show without choking. That's pretty good considering what I'm dealing with in this time. That's a good thing. So anyway, Jody Lynn, first of all, I want to ask you something before we part company for the day.
Ooh.
This is like your second full week as an official co-host. Now, you did a couple shows with me before that, but I'm curious about one thing that I want the listeners to hear the answer to this. What's the difference in your mind between being a co-host and a guest?
Ooh. Oh, it's a hard one. I talk less. I was going to go with I learn more, and that's probably true too. I find, you know, I just pick up little nuggets, Ashlee, just little things that you said that are just so incredibly inspiring. And, you know, just meeting like-minded people is incredible. And it renews my faith in humanity, truly, because I know that there's great people like you that live out there. And every time I come on this show, so far, and I think that will continue because you have a great show, Walt. I know that I will continue to see that, and it's just this incredible light for the world. So.
I was curious to know if you were going to say something like that, because it's exactly what the show does for me and has done for me for nearly 10 years. All the stuff that I learned from the guests. Yeah. I say it often. I say it often because it's true, and it continues to be true to this day.
Yeah.
So,
you got great people
Jody
coming
Lynn.
in.
You have great people. How can you fail, right? I mean, great people is what gets you there. So thank you, Jody Lynn, for what you're doing and participating here in the program. And Ashlee, we wish you all the best going forward, man. I mean, you got a good thing going there, and keep going.
Yeah. Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Jody Lynn. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.